Oh no!
Oh, that's not good.
Just skip.
Oh no.
I'm feeling better about my pick compared to you.
Oh, that's bad.
Oh, it was almost right!
It's so annoying. It's actually really, really frustrating. We're about to find out just how terrible we are at making predictions. This is something that we do every single year. We sort of take a few categories and we look at them and try and predict what's going to happen for the 2022 F1 season. This year was particularly difficult given the new regulation changes. I think we almost went into it knowing that it was going to be really, really hard. We'll laugh at our decisions and sort of try and justify why we made the decisions we did, I guess. But
I'd be almost curious to see, because we reacted to the ones we did the last time we did this, and we were
Yes.
quite far off, and I'll be curious to see whether we've improved, we've learnt from that, because I think we both came in going, oh, we've learnt our lesson, we'll, guess a bit differently, and yet, for all we know, we could have done a lot worse, so...
Yeah, let's just watch. We'll see.
Let's go. I do think that every driver will score points this year.
Oh, yeah, that's
I
right.
think that in terms of the Haas drivers, I think it will be Mazepin that will outperform Mick. Oh no!
Before we get into it, let us know your predictions for this year. So we're going to go through.
So
I'm going to pause it there. So that was obviously us looking back at the previous predictions. So that's, if that isn't an idea of where this one's probably going, then I don't know what is.
All right, I'll start off. First one I've got is very much some dipping into a prediction last year and doubling down on it, because that's what you do, right? You might be wrong one year, but then you prove that you were on the right track the next year.
Right.
So, my first prediction is that every driver will score a point on at least 2 separate occasions, not just once. I think it's almost too easy a call to say just make the same call and say everyone's going to make a point, and it's probably cheap for myself just to use the same thing, so I've upgraded it to say on 2 separate occasions.
Well, in that vein, I feel a bit silly because one of my predictions was every driver will score points this year. So...
You cheapskate, you cheaped out.
And
I was right.
Yeah.
It was so free, your one. But
yeah. You were close. I think the problem is that Latifi let you down. If there was a better driver in that seat, you would have been 100% correct. But yeah, Latifi let you down there, pal.
It was only Latifi that let me down, and even the last few races, I was going, come on, Latifi,
Yeah.
fucking come on, just do it. Like, I was totally on the right money, except for him. And I knew, I was like, too easy to say everyone, and it was a safe bet from you.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, well, I applaud you.
I see. I thought I was being. The reason why I said I thought I was going to be very well. First of all, because you said, it's too easy to predict that. But I also thought I was being clever because I was like, he's not going to pick the same prediction from last year, so I'm going to pick one of his and be like, oh yeah, this is something that he predicted last year, but I'm going to predict it for this year. Look at me, I'm so clever, and you're like, I'm going to double down on it, and I'm just like, well, you've just screwed me out of one of mine.
Yes.
So, but you're right, it was a very safe one for a bold prediction. So, well,
it showed our thoughts were right about the new season, though.
Yeah.
I thought that one would be way too easy, and it kind of was. Again, without, if you had not a Latifi in there, look, you'd even argue to say if De Vries was in there all year, he almost certainly would have scored another race rather than Monza. The thought process was there, but the Latifi factor, I believe too hard.
Yeah.
So.
Oh well, maybe next year.
Maybe next year.
We will get all 23 races as planned this year with no substitute.
Oh dear.
I forgot about that. I forgot about that one.
I was happy with the editing on this video to say. I forgot I splashed it up a bit.
Oh, yeah, because I remember we recorded this one and then you edited it. It was about probably a week to edit.
It's like a week, and then while that was happening, everything kicked off.
Yeah, then you had, the whole Russian Grand Prix got completely cancelled because of the obvious.
Yes.
So my prediction before the video was even released was null and void. So
yes.
But
and I did offer you. I think I said during editing, I'm like, "Do you want to pick something else?" You're like, "No, we made it ahead of time, and that's the way the cookie crumbles."
That's it. I should have. Well, I mean, even that, like, we had.
That was something you couldn't predict, right? Your thinking was other places.
Yeah, which it turns out we were supposed to have the Chinese Grand Prix anyway, and we didn't have that either. So
Yeah.
I mean, I would have lost it regardless.
And it was high risk places like Singapore, Japan, even arguably Australia. You could still throw a coin in there for. So the fact all those went ahead, you weren't that far off. But
close. It was just the two, the one freak one with Russia because of the whole world situation, and then China.
You do get credit though for saying that. I don't remember the specific line you just said. I've already forgotten. Something about how like COVID will still be around, but tracks will find a way to work. And you're correct about that. There's still a lot of COVID out there, but tracks are finding a way to work through it. So you're right on that front. Again, you didn't get it, but for the reasons that you gave for why you picked it were actually correct.
Yeah, sort of. There's gonna be. I feel like there's gonna be a lot of half wins in this because I think. For us. Yeah. How do I word this? For us, the thought process of how Formula One works and how it operates, I think we have the idea of how it all works, but the actual decisions that happen because of it is something that we just don't really know. So, like the Chinese Grand Prix, for example, I couldn't have ever imagined that it'd be out for this long. Like I realize that COVID is still that crazy, but
but it is linked to some pretty extreme circumstances going on there, which are very unique, right, to them, rather than it being a lot of countries are doing it and coincidentally one as we have a race at. It's pretty unique what they're doing, right?
Yeah, so. I also thought they'd be pretty keen to get back there with Zhou Guanyu coming in as well.
Well, they were recently saying we want to go there twice very soon.
Exactly.
Now they seem to be going, we're not going there soon at all.
Yeah.
So again, completely against what we were hearing at the start of the year. I believe that both of the Mercedes, Red Bull, and Ferrari drivers will all get wins throughout the year. And I say that it's kind of similar to what some people say, because a lot of people like to make the call saying that they think Sainz will win a race. And I've gone, well, rather than just saying that because I think that's a decent call too, I'll actually say there's 6 of them, I think, because I think there's still a bit there. There's still, Checo got to prove himself. There's still, I guess, both Ferrari drivers have to get into a point where they can win. Some people, of course, have called that their car's going to be a god this year. I might think different to that, but still I think it'll be tricky. And then, of course, Russell's also going to get his win. So I think of my safest of the 3 is that one. I thought about maybe extending it further, but then I went, you know what? No, I'm going to sit with the top. Those 6 drivers, I think, will all get wins this year.
Yeah. All right, pause there. So, not quite, but pretty close.
And if you asked me to pick which driver would be the one that wouldn't get it,
you would not be Hamilton. No.
It would be close.
No way.
Well, when you look at other things going on, I think it definitely.
Yeah.
Not.
So that was a. You say it was the most boring, but that ends up being like you look at it at the end of the season and you're like, man, that's actually a tough call.
Yes. And even when I said I was thinking about including others, it's like, that was actually a good bet.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. No way. Yeah, including others would have made it much worse because there was no one else even really in the question for winning a race. So, and Russell only got one that second last race at Brazil, where that Mercedes finally came into its own. I reckon if you had 2 or 3 more races at the end of the season, Hamilton very easily could have won one of those towards the end, considering how good their car was. So
my third prediction, and this is one I cooked up more recent than the other 2, and I'm still not sure how I want to go about it, but it's touching on something we haven't seen for a little bit in terms of the driver market. And I think throughout the year, before the end of the year,
that's right,
there will be 2 seats that will change during the course of the year. I don't know which seats, but I think there will be some shifts while the year is still going. I know a few years ago we had a bit of that going on, sometimes related to Red Bull or other, movements going around. They made it a bit early. Well, we haven't really seen it as recent, but I think this year is probably going to be most prone for something like that.
Right. That was
I started off the year with one already, and I'm like, surely by the end of the year. Yeah. And a few drivers you saw out there were really struggling, and everyone's like, they're gonna be out. Who's replacing them? And I'm like, just bring him in a bit early. Come on. I was right. There was a lot of change, but.
Yeah, there was. That's it. Like I remember actually talking about this one because you said like about halfway through the year, this is one that you said you had remembered about halfway through the year. And obviously we had Mazepin out and Magnussen in, which is very, very early. So a
freebie early on.
Yeah, literally a freebie. And then the talk about, Ricciardo obviously not performing, Latifi looking to get replaced sort of late season.
Mick as well.
Mick as well. So there was like there was a lot of rumors going around that a few of those drivers were going to be replaced mid-season, and you were just like, oh my god, please, I just need one of these to be true. Didn't end up eventuating. Everyone saw out their season. To be fair, the driver change silly season itself was
it propped off probably as much as we were hoping, and more so. It just everyone seemed to do it honorably. Yeah, and say, look, there's a lot of change, but we'll see everyone out, and then I am happy with my calls, despite the fact that I get nothing from it. It showed that my thought about what the season was going to be was fairly in the right line, which is a good thing, because I was hopeful about the season, so I'm happy about that.
Yeah, again, it's the same thing. It's like you sort of, the train of thought of how the whole process works is like, you're right there, you're right, but how it all played out is just not
the
quite.
specifics are just a little off,
exactly,
but same vein.
So, yeah, very, very good. I think I disagree. If it was just like a couple of drivers that struggled with the new regulations and maybe took a little bit to get up to speed, maybe, like if you said 2 changes, if there was 2 drivers in particular that were really struggling and everyone else was like, oh no, they're fine, then okay, maybe I would look at that. I think a lot more will struggle. I think there's going to be, maybe not half the field, let's say like a third of the field or a quarter of the field I think they'll take a little while to get up to speed with the new cars. And I think... So, I forgot I mentioned this, but I'm actually trying to think, how true is that? Because I think it's probably a third of the field's about 7 drivers. Was there 6-7 drivers that maybe struggled with these new regulations?
I guess...
Or is it just them struggling relative to their teammate, maybe?
Yeah, I suppose you're saying if there was like 1 or 2 only and the other 18 were nailing it, then it would really single them out. Like if it was just like Ricardo and Mick were like eons off, almost like last and second last every race, right? But there still was a few people that went topsy-turvy, which kind of took the focus, away at times from them, and then they kind of just more came at the end of the year. But I don't know,
because I'm thinking, like, I don't know if it was the pressures of, because there's other factors to consider as well, because I'm thinking of like Assigns early on, like, but I don't know if that's because he was in a championship winning car and he was going up against Leclerc, who was really on top of the car early. So that could have been a factor where we just felt like he was under more pressure than he was, last year, for example. And then you have like a Vettel who came in, third race, hadn't really raced the car. He struggled on, really early as well.
I forgot. He had a dreadful start.
Yeah, but, that was down to the fact that he hadn't raced, the first couple of weekends, and that car was very poor early on. So, there's a couple of drivers in there that I thought did struggle, but I don't know if it was solely because of the car or if there was like...
I'd say, the tolerance for lenience was big as well. So even when you saw some people really struggling, it was almost like even still into the late second half of the year, you were going, but if they do turn it around now, I think they'd say, oh, well, they've still earned enough for their seat, right? Like, it took a long time even for Mick to be fully out of there, despite the fact that almost all year he really seemed to be struggling. When maybe the year after, if he was still in, or a year where it wasn't the new regs, then there'd be probably more, mid-year where you'd start to go, okay, actually, he's already passed enough, what do you call it, grace period, while these new regs, I think is what you're hinting at, was saying there is going to be a bit more of this could just be because we're still working things out, and there could be a light bulb moment, as we saw with Vettel, who struggled a lot, and then he seemed to hit a light bulb moment, and he had a great second half near the end of the year,
Oh, even Hamilton as well. Hamilton had...
That's very true.
Compared to Russell.
He was very... Yes, very unhappy. Russell was so, but he was coming from a Williams, so it doesn't really matter.
He sort of had the experience of running a car that wasn't quite up to speed.
Yes, exactly. So he's going to be happy no matter what. But Hamilton, it wasn't that long ago we heard him every race going, man, we need help here. This is horrible. And then he was a lot more positive, even when he wasn't winning, but he still got to grips with it and then was able to fight and find some performance. Your thinking was pretty online there. So
again,
no points though. Sorry, but
damn it. Maybe next year.
Next year, that's it. We're learning.
My third bold prediction is I believe George and Lewis will come together at least once during the season.
Oh, cheeky.
Yeah. Damn. I do. Yeah, I think it'll probably be in the back half of the season as well. I think in the first half of the season, I think George will try...
Come on, Brazil, I needed you.
Probably try and keep his nose. I also don't necessarily think he'll be in a position in maybe the first half of the season to be racing side by side with Lewis. Well then,
that was a really interesting one. I think that was really... It was fine at the time. I know I didn't agree with it, but... like, circumstances changed, of course. They weren't two drivers that were fighting who also were in a great spot. They both, for the team's sake, needed to just be safe and get the results in, which is exactly what they did and what their trend was, right?
Yeah.
And I guess they both proved that, look, in this scenario, they can work fine together. In a different scenario, if they were constantly fighting for wins or top places in a podium, who knows? I do remember going to Brazil when we were near the end. I thought, could this be the spot where they get a bit tough here, some elbows out, maybe a bit of spat on the team radio? But, hey, if that isn't proof that you don't get the point, then I don't know what is, because that was very well handled by the both of them. They were on their best behavior. So you're a little early on the gun on this one, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing. Again, I still don't disagree with it. Well, not disagree. Like, I still think if I went back to the start of the season and I said this, heard this prediction, I'd be like, you know what, that's a fair prediction. I didn't think Russell would be... Well, again, like you said, the circumstances changed I didn't expect the Mercedes to drop back on pace that much. As you'll probably see a little bit later, we still both expected Mercedes to be quite strong. So I think that definitely changed the dynamic in the team a little bit, where it went from they have to fight each other to, okay, now it's damage limitation. Now we just need to take home as many points as possible to try and keep ourselves in this. Yeah, which they did incredibly well, and particularly Russell. I didn't expect Russell to be that on it that early in that car, but fair play to him. He was right there from the get go. So, but yeah, didn't really see, again, because it was all damage limitation for Mercedes. There was never really a point outside of Brazil, maybe, but they were just happy to get that one too. But...
Well, that was it. That was the test, and there could have been chances where they did. And whenever Hamilton did seem to fall behind him, he felt through. It was unluckiness or whatever. He never, blamed George. He almost just said, "Hey, great job to them," and he just said, "Our side needs to do better." Not because he thinks he needs to beat George, but he also, wants to just do as best as he and his side of the garage can do. So, but it'll be interesting going forward. I think what a year for them to almost go through this journey and that. And they've set a good baseline, but we've seen good relationships, aka Hamilton and Rosberg, turn toxic before when things change. They were once ugly, cuddly on the podium. Yep. So, but again, maybe a little too early on the gun for this one.
I could definitely see this happening for next year if Mercedes continue the trajectory that they're going. And they are genuine. I think the caveat has to be that they are genuine championship contenders and genuine race winners on a lot of occasions. I think that needs to be a stipulation, a prerequisite. Yeah,
because we've seen they'll be friendly when that's not on the line.
Yeah,
so we're like, you got to have that pressure in to actually stoke the fire.
Yeah, definitely. The wooden spoon driver. So who we think is going to end up bottom of the points table?
I have gone with...
Oh yeah, that's right.
Guan Yu Zhao for wooden spoon driver.
That's right.
I don't think there'll be a clear back marker. I think it'll be mostly a front end and then a midfield kind of formula. This is partly, I guess, more in my opinion of Alpha, and I think this year almost starting the furthest behind of that kind of, let's say, back marker trio we've traditionally had. I think Guan Yu Zhao is a fine driver, but I just think
I get a point for that.
This car, do I think that, let's say, someone like a Mazepin is going to, in average, do worse than him if I think their car's going to be slightly better? And I think Mazepin having that extra year...
Oh dear, I lose my point.
Still going to elevate him enough where he's just going to be ahead.
That's minus
even
3
if it's
points,
a tiny
buddy.
bit behind Zhao, let's say, still in skill, the car, I think the Haas will still be quite far ahead of where the Alpha's going to start. And therefore, I believe that, then it's more a question of Zhao versus Bottas, and I don't, you don't need to think about that one for too long, let's be honest. So that's my wooden spoon driver. Who have you got?
I have also got Guan Yu Zhou. Pretty much echo all of your opinions. I do think you look at the last season, the three teams that were at the back were the Alpha, the Williams, the Haas. I back Williams to continue their trajectory. I back Haas to make a big step forward. And
Half points.
I do expect Alpha to sort of just drop back a little bit compared to those teams. There was all this discussion about Williams last year where Williams and Haas were like, they stopped development so early to prepare for this year's car. There was no real talk about Alpha, and they had
the least talk. They apparently switched last. They seemed to have a lot of change when others weren't having change. Tree predicted would be bad, so all signs pointed to us going, we're not hearing anything. And then I remember testing started, and we were kind of like, oh. And then the first race happened. We were like, oh, but we're happy for them. Let's just scrap half of this prediction video.
Yeah.
We were right on that Haas factor.
Yeah.
It's just that we thought the second team to jump up, the Williams, wasn't the one that jumped up.
Yeah. I
Had
think
the wrong car.
With Williams is a tough one now, with obviously Jos Capito leaving, and obviously the direction of that team is not. It doesn't seem to be going in the right direction at the moment. I kind of worry for Williams a little bit after this year, because they did sacrifice a lot to do the same thing that Haas tried to do, and they just couldn't pull it off. They have their occasions. Nick De Vries came in and got points. Albon got had a couple of real crazy strategies and managed to score points on pace a couple of times as well. But yeah, for the most part, they were sitting around the back, which is obviously not where they want to be going into these new regulations. It shows that there's something fundamentally wrong at Williams right now, and with Jos Capito leaving as well. Still no announcement of who's coming in for him, but it's worrying times for them. At least Alpha and Haas, they're going the right direction. Even someone like Aston Martin, the way they improved through the season, they've obviously got some kind of direction as well, but it just seems like Williams still feel like the only team where when they score a point, it's something to point out and give them almost a pat on the back for achievement. While everyone else, if they get a 10th or a 9th, you go, well, they probably just drove a good race and didn't make a mistake. Well, you see Williams there and you go, oh, great job for them. They pulled it out, when they also want to be in that bucket of going, they probably had their turn. They just ran a safe race. Yeah, and then speaking on Zhao as well. Despite the fact that he drove well, but got absolutely smattered with unreliability and penalties and all sorts, he still did more than fine enough and better than even I was hoping, thinking he would do better than most predicted. Yeah,
so
100%. I think if they can produce a little bit more of a reliable car and a car that can consistently be up in the points for next year, I think Zhao will flourish there.
Be a lot closer to Bottas
I think that'd be very good. The other thing that impressed me about Zhao is just his general attitude. I haven't heard him really get super angry or frustrated like some other drivers do. Consider it with the unreliability that he's had, he's a bit disappointed, but it's not like he's lashing out saying, "Oh, this is not okay," or his attitude to how the whole season unfolded has just been, it's something, it's kind of stood out to me that it's something. It's
all you need to do is look at a driver in a very similar spot, which is Yuki, who also had a lot of bad luck, and then it was still on brand for him to often lash out and at the team, which he's fair enough to do if he's doing his bit, but is you're right, and there's been a lot of praise from Bottas the mechanic, saying that Zhao is a pleasure to work with, and he's doing everything he can off the track and off season to improve. And hey, that's I'm just glad he's doing well, because I hoped he would, and I'm glad that people can see that, hey, actually, yes, he was in F2 for a while, but he stepped up and he's done all right.
I really like the look of Alpha at the moment. I think I've talked to you, they're probably becoming my favorite team after this year. I do like a good underdog, and I really like both the drivers in the team, and it just looks...
and they've got an exciting future as well coming up.
Definitely.
So. You could even argue a Latifi or something. Right?
You could.
You could argue it. I mean, if you really wanted to go bold, you could predict your an Aston or an Alpine really dropping back.
I did give a brief thought to someone like Ocon, and I went,
"Oh, good."
I had a brief thought to
a look bad.
Wooden Spoon team. I feel like we might be pretty similar on this one as well. But let us know who you have. Yep.
Yes, of course. I have gone with Alpha. Similar reasons.
I think we kind of touched on this.
Again, I don't think they're a bad outfit, but I think really I guess
Might
it's
go
a
into
lot
the same
about
reasons here.
potential as well. And I
Yeah.
think last year they actually had
Roll on.
a pretty strong car.
I will echo you on that. Is Alfa Romeo I've got as wooden spin team as well. So
Yeah, I don't have much to add. And I think in the interest of time, I've covered it all anyway.
Yeah.
So
All right, moving on. Our most improved or standout driver compared to last year.
I don't remember who I said
compared
here.
to like their expectations.
I think I
let
do.
us know who you have, Kyle.
Me?
I did the same joke.
What do you think?
So this one's a little tricky because we talked about a bit how we want to almost define this, because we just think about best driver. There's maybe a few drivers you have a good case for, but that's because they've been so good recently. You almost want to say, well, there's no reason why they're not good again, right?
Yep.
But this is more trying to think of who is almost going to be unexpectedly good. And so again, referencing to our 2023 predictions video, I basically have to back Perez to fall into this category. If I think he's going to push enough of a case where Red Bull want to consider him for another year, as I predict is more likely than most other people predict.
He's gonna need to do something special. I have gone with Yuki Tsunoda.
Ooh.
Okay.
No. I didn't expect you to pick that.
Yuki always made
that's
the most
bad.
sense when I was comparing them, though. Last year he had his
that's
moments,
not
you
good.
could see just how fast
I'm
he was
feeling better about
in
my pick
some
compared to
moments,
you.
pretty rare moments,
completely
but some
forgot
moments
about
nonetheless. I need to. Yeah, I've completely forgot.
I don't think it helped that the car was.
Not
we
good,
expected to be status quo, and I think we talked about it in our season review where it really just was like the least talked about team. It never appeared anywhere. Like it was never at the full back, but it never really was in the talking point at all. Not that means that we can't rate how Yuki did, but I don't know about giving you the point on this one.
No,
I
don't. No, I don't deserve that point.
The much harder thing is who would you give this to?
Yeah.
Like you can run through the list of everyone.
Yeah, it's
hard.
It's really hard. And I knew this was going to be a really hard one, which is probably testament to the fact that we both picked two completely different drivers. Every time we pick, go two completely different ways, it always seems to be a really tricky category.
Yeah, there's not something obvious, right?
Yeah. There's so many people you could argue. I'd love to know anyone that's watching who you would pick as the most improved or a standout in the comments, but I don't.
that is hard.
I can't pick like one. I can probably pick out 3 or 4. Like I think George did, but
there are drivers that did better than expected.
Yeah.
I think George is on there.
Yep.
I think Ocon is on there, despite he had a strong year, but he still did well. I think on the existing drivers it's hard, but I think on who did stand out, then I would have to give it to Albon then.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, he's definitely in contention.
For my pick, I think Checo improved a little, but not as much as I would say to actually...
Yeah.
Like, he didn't get P2 in the championship. There's not a question there. He should have gotten that. We've already talked about that a lot.
Yes.
So, I still think he has a seat because he did enough, but he's not the standout by any case.
Yeah.
So, I guess Albon, Russell, or Ocon, I'd say one of those 3.
The most improved / standout team.
Ooh.
So who have you gone with for your team?
Well, I don't think this one was hard. There's maybe 2 you could toss up, but I mean, is it anyone else other than Haas?
They were so far in 10th that they might as well have been like 13th.
Exactly. Yes. Like if they still had Kaden
true.
and Marussia, a big conversation if they were even fighting them.
I considered AlphaTauri as well. I think again I had such high hopes for AlphaTauri, man.
No, everyone did.
And, I predicted Gasly with the driver predictions that we did. By the way, what's
so
that
well?
video? He's gonna get the Red Bull seat. So
Spoil it. Cancel the video.
I already jumped on. At the end of the day, I did also go with Haas though. So
okay.
I'm
thinking, what else has he got left?
Yeah,
Alfa
there's
Romeo.
not many teams. Yeah.
That was almost a good pick though.
Yeah. Slightly hard. Even if they, like you said, jump to 8th, that's a huge result for them, I think. And I do expect them to jump up quite a lot compared to where they have been. Oh, that's right. All right. Yeah.
Where did they finish? Was it 8th?
I think it was 8th. Yeah. Which is still, that's
Ahead
2
of-
spots.
yeah,
It was
yeah.
ahead of AlphaTauri and Williams, I believe. They didn't quite get Alfa Romeo, so I think really the only 2 in contention for this one are Alfa Romeo and Haas. And I think,
Well, you say that.
you reckon?
I think you should throw Ferrari in that mix.
You
I mean, we were
reckon?
even downplaying all the rumors as well, and we were saying, oh, they're not going to fly out as far as we thought they would. And in the first quarter of the year, they were by far the strongest, which I wouldn't put any money on. So when you look at the year as a whole, maybe not, but as, I guess, a whole jump thing,
Yeah, maybe.
I wouldn't say they got it, but I would put them
No, that's fair.
at least third best.
I think Haas is still probably the best shout. Again, what we talked about is how far behind
Yes,
they
you have to
were.
remember. Yes, it's
Yeah.
not like they were in the pack last year and went, oh, they jumped up.
Yeah,
No, they
were
were
nowhere.
nowhere.
So I think even to jump, the Williams and the AlphaTauri to get to 8th, they're well in the mix. And again, particularly early season, their pace was unexpected, but also expected. It was kind of a weird one.
Yes.
It's like you saw them up there.
It was
you're
almost best case scenario for what
Yeah,
you were hoping.
Yeah, so I think I think Haas. I think it was a good call from both of us. It was an easy call, particularly in hindsight. But yeah, their jump was impressive, and hopefully that means their direction going forward sort of continues that trajectory, and they don't do what Haas did where they first entered the sport and start strong and then just drop back a bit. So
Well, that's what their intention was with some
Yeah.
of the changes they've been making, right?
Yep.
And why they're bringing in Hulkenberg and that.
Yep,
So...
yeah, true.
And I think credit to Alfa Romeo for pulling a blinder when we talked them down so much, and I even joked
Yep.
going, oh, who are you going to pick, Alfa Romeo? Oh, but actually,
yeah, there you
credit
go.
where credit's due.
Who do you think will go backwards the most this year? Which I think
Well,
is a
the reason I got
discussion.
thinking about it is because
Red trophy, nice. I didn't even
just
realize
to
that.
relate a lot to our news video, which should be, I guess, a video previous to this one. So if you haven't seen that, maybe that'll give you some extra context as to why I'm bringing this one up. But I believe that Alpine, compared to last year,
Oh
will
no!
fall off the rock.
Oh,
I think last year
oh,
that they
dear.
didn't actually have that solid. Based on the changes they've made, some of the things you've heard, I think that coming into the new year, they probably have almost like the least kind of. It feels like they have the least direction of what they want to do, and these are still things that are kind of happening. I.e., a lot of this, it's not really working going into the new regs, and therefore you'd think, well, when everyone else, for the most part, looks quite stable and almost confident in what they've set up going forward. In comparison, you'd go, well, if this is what we're seeing at the face, what's it looking like under the hood, right?
I
What
also
have
have
you got?
Alpine for the
Yeah.
same reasons. Yeah. So we both went Alpine.
This is why we're not professionals.
Yeah.
Because we even went in detail on
Yeah.
all sorts of manner that the average Joe wouldn't know,
Mm-hmm.
and yet we were off on the mark.
We
But
were.
it is interesting because despite the fact that they did go up the grid and arguably performed better rather than worse, you still had Alonso who left saying it's still run like a clown show in there. I don't believe in it, right? So it's like
Yeah.
we were almost right that under the hood it seemed like it was directionless or whatever, but they still pulled out an actually good year.
This has shown me that I guess you can look too much into that the behind the scenes kind of thing, that it can sort of cloud your judgment a bit.
Yes.
But Alpine, they somehow their engine was like, it was either a rocket or they were just running it way too hot, because they had a lot of engine failures as well. Yeah, I did expect them to go backwards again for the same reasons, just looking too much into the behind the scenes things. But
And expecting everyone else to make a decent jump. But as we saw, McLaren kind of stayed the same, and Alpine took advantage of that.
Yep.
Aston Martin, arguably, we thought would make a decent jump from where they were, and they stayed kind of the same.
Yep.
Although Haas and Alfa Romeo did jump up, it wasn't to that level.
Yep.
And AlphaTauri, of course, actually should have got this award, I think, is the pretty
I think
obvious
so,
winner of
yeah.
this award.
Yeah, definitely.
Which I didn't even think about, because again, you saw year on year they were making small improvements. You expected it to continue, but it's a wonderful sport we're into. It throws a
Yeah.
curveball at every corner.
Last year we did who we think would just be Constructors champion. This year we've gone a little bit different in that you suggested actually that we should do top 3. That's
Ooh.
right, I forgot about that. Oh yeah, that's a good idea. That might make for a little bit more interesting conversation for this year in
Uh-oh.
particular. So Yeah, I know where this is going.
I guess
So this may disappoint some of the more ambitious of those out there, and there is quite a lot of them based on a lot of thumbnails and articles and Twitter speak I've seen. But my third team, I think, again, Ferrari got third Constructors last year, so I think again they'll get third again. As a general trend, I guess I'll say is that a lot of people think this is a good time for a shake-up, but I think, based on what my other two are likely to be, I still think that there's not going to be too much massive shake-up in terms of one going this way and one going that way, right? Except for aforementioned Alpine, I guess.
Yeah.
So I put Ferrari as number 3. Again, I guess the argument is against most of the others that they, were fighting with last year. I still think their momentum is on the up. I don't think it's up enough to get any higher, but I don't think they'll be that far off higher than they were last year.
Well, the fact that you think that both of them will get race wins in that Ferrari as well is, proof that you think they'll be a little bit closer. So.
Exactly.
Right thought.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fit.
So number
if you want to go number 2
is Haas. No.
Oh, he's done it.
This gag again.
Big
It's dead.
improvement.
Yeah.
So number 2, I've gone.
How many
with
times have we made
Red
that
Bull.
joke? Yeah.
Okay.
Again, I think
Yeah.
there's no reason to see
I remember
them
both
drop
of ours
back.
now.
They've almost had that history of, having like some highs and they kind of drop back a bit and they have some highs
Just
again, I think.
skip.
Yeah.
Based on a
Skip
few
the
changes
end.
to their culture and how. I guess talk about them together. Mercedes 1, Red Bull 2. Again, I'll roll out the fact that some people think maybe McLaren or Ferrari will sneak in there. I just don't see it happening. I think maybe next year, the year after, it's more common. Again, as we saw a trend more with Mercedes so out in front, and then Ferrari were up there a bit, and then Red Bull were up there a bit and did enough to challenge them, right? I think we're more likely to see a trend like that happen for some of the other teams, but I think it's more for the top 2, Mercedes, Red Bull, and I just think with how good Mercedes are at adapting that I don't think they will have any sort of runaway with it. I think it'll be close, but I still pip them at the top because they've shown that for adapting since they've come, into the sport as a full outfit, that that's what they're perfect at doing, right? And even throughout areas of last year on a smaller scale and needing to adapt in short time frames, they adapted amazingly to be able to figure out what the hell was going wrong and challenge.
So I'm going to pause there because, again, half right. So they adapting in the sense that the start of the season, obviously, they had a lot of trouble with the porpoising.
A lot.
Once they started to get on top of that and started to understand their car, and they sort of committed to their no pod design, assuming or convinced that it was the right direction to go. They did adapt, in one season, considering where they were to where they got to by the end of the season, where they were, genuine, race contender winners, up there with the Ferrari and the Red Bull, which were so far ahead of Mercedes.
They were
at the start.
miles off at the start, and
Yeah.
you thought, okay.
Yeah. So again, you're half right. They did adapt very, very well. It just happened during the season rather than before
I
the
just
season
thought
started.
they might
yeah.
start a bit stronger
Yeah,
rather than starting
We'll give
so
them a
far
head
back.
start this time. Yeah. So again, it's the right thinking, but this was so hard to predict. It's just a really, really hard thing to predict that Mercedes would drop back as much as they did.
I will start off by saying that we have differed.
Oh,
Yeah, I know
slightly.
what mine is. This is bad.
I have
Good.
got my number 3. I have Red Bull.
woo!
Oh, I was hoping you'd be the spicy one. It'd be too boring if we both went same.
Good
So
job.
I actually had this as one of my bold predictions. Before
I'm
we
so
decided to go
unhappy.
Top 3 of each.
Good.
One of my predictions was I predicted one of the top 2, or at least one of the top 2 to drop out of the top 2.
half
so
win.
one or both of Mercedes and Red Bull to drop out. Having to. I think they've put a bit more effort into their 2021 car than maybe Mercedes had in terms of resources.
You
And I
discussed
do
that a
think-
bit, I think, in our season review. I think you said
I'm-
at the
I'm
end they
sh- I'm
went
sure I
pretty hard
probably
on
have.
it.
Yeah. I think I said both of them went pretty hard on it. I didn't specify specifically who, but I do think Red Bull probably, given how I think important it seemed to them. I mean, obviously for both of them, but
They
being
would have
the
had to
second-
allocate a
yeah.
lot more to make a jump, while Mercedes were
think
more
so.
just
Yep.
allocating to stay.
How true we were. They allocated more than they were allowed
Yeah,
to
we
that car.
we got a point.
Yeah. So again, sort of, it's actually crazy how much I'm thinking about this. It's all of them are pretty much wrong, but the thought process behind it is like so on track, and then it's like we just make a left turn, and it's like we should have just kept
our
going
logic
straight.
was correct, but despite that, there was still a different result.
Yeah, it's so annoying. It's actually really, really frustrating.
Yeah.
But, even the fact that I'm like, I know one of the two will drop back, and I just, the logic was all there. It's like Red Bull put more resources into winning this one, and they did. They used about $7 million more resources than Mercedes had. But I think a lot of it came down to just that porpoising, which is something again that teams are talking about. They just couldn't replicate in a wind tunnel, so it probably caught them maybe a little more off guard than they expected, and I think that's possibly all it took, because then they had to allocate a lot to try and get that under control.
Well, the porpoising and a few other things. There was a great in Beyond the Grid recently with Toto Wolff. He talked about this at a high level, and it was great how he went into it, and not just the overall story of how they adapted, but in general how they had the porpoising, and that actually revealed a few other things that meant, once they solved that, it wasn't just smooth sailing, and why they didn't, everyone was saying every weekend, are they going to abandon this concept? And they kept doubling down, and
that's right.
Everyone doubted it, so... But that point of saying, doubling down on resources, both teams, you'd expect Mercedes to be more on status quo, but
it's crazy.
Yeah, it threw everyone off. No one really came into this year predicting that, not just Mercedes, but again, Ferrari, we kept joking, saying, like they'll be there, but not really close. Even ironically, they almost did fall to Mercedes and still finish in third, but that wasn't because of the car, you'd argue, because of other reasons, right? It should have been an easy second, but there you go.
At number 2, I have Ferrari. So,
hooray!
I know again.
Yay!
Like I know a lot of people
just
said
celebrate
Ferrari
something.
will, given how much they've been allocating to the 2022.
That's right. They did allocate really early.
Given the team structure, it seems the drivers, everything there seems it's in a prime position for them. Everything's just sort of come at the right time, and I think it's very, very likely that they will jump. They will jump into the top 2 again. So I've got them as number 2, and then I have gone with Mercedes as number 1.
I thought you were going with Haas.
And then we
How many times can we make that joke this video? And even if they're maybe a little bit off at the start of the season, again, like we saw last year, they know what to do. They've got such a good team. I've still pipped Mercedes to take it. So let's move on to top 3 drivers then, because this one could be interesting. Especially with, again, like Russell coming in.
Again, mine are probably safer, because, again, I'm going down this more safer route. Maybe call it the bitching out route, but that's that's what I'm going down. I'm going to stick to it. So I guess starting third, I do have Russell there. Again, you have some of these very enthusiastics going, they genuinely think that he could tackle Hamilton that. And yes, I mean, I did even touch on that idea for our driver predictions when we're saying, look, what were the ramifications if potentially he really comes and storms into that team and stomps over Hamilton, right? But our conclusion was, that's not actually that likely, maybe in the first year or two, right? So I got Russell number 3. Again, I think he's going to be consistent enough compared to maybe the other drivers that might go in that slot. I don't think he's going to be so rash that he's trying to prove himself so much that he does, even sometimes what you saw with some of the Red Bull drivers like an Albon or a Gasly, where at times they just seem to really over push and then it just went to shambles, right? I feel like he's going to take his time even in the first half of the year and then maybe try more guns blazing. But again, I think the other 2 drivers there are more still going to go into this year wanting to be 110% straight away off the back of last year as well. And I don't think Russell will immediately think he's got to get in the middle of that, his own maybe personal progression. So number 2, I have...
Let's pause, because you were right. Again, you were right. You were right about Russell.
The logic was there.
The logic. It's these half wins that we're getting. He kept his nose out of trouble.
Although in saying that, we did say we thought it'd be a sizable bit behind Hamilton, but I'd argue he was a lot closer than I predicted. So
definitely.
Maxi boy Verstappen.
Yeah.
Again, because I guess I put Red Bull second there. I haven't, obviously part of Red Bull's second is obviously because I think Checo will also pick up the slack a bit as per
A bit was correct.
Yeah,
his
a bit.
things, so
A bit.
therefore,
It's
I
all
think both
linked.
of them- Exactly.
Linked.
I've thought about it.
I did think
did
about
do
it.
my research. I still think it'll be close between Mercedes and Red Bull as it was last year, but I do pip actually Hamilton to take it over Verstappen. I think again,
Oh dear.
this adapting to change thing. Not only is it a team thing,
Oh
but also
dear.
Hamilton. I think
You've just swapped out the Bottas with the Russell.
Pretty
Yep.
much, yes. Do I think
Wow,
that
okay.
Russell be a stronger Bottas?
Yes.
But I don't think that Checo will do enough to get ahead of Russell either. Even though I think he'll be strong, but because I think that Mercedes will be a bit of a step still to the Red Bull, then still. a step
Russell
down.
was stronger
So
than
that's my
Perez,
top
relatively
three.
speaking. So
Right.
Mhm,
Viewers
mhm.
have
Right.
skipped that bit because that was the boring bit, and now they want
Yeah.
to hear your bit.
I have got at number 3. I have got Charles Leclerc.
Oh, it was almost right.
Obviously, I predict Ferrari.
wow,
to,
God damn it,
sign
Perez.
Leclerc.
He was. I know.
How
So
Sainz
close.
could beat him when he has a car that works for him, he can bring out the best in that car.
I'd
Yeah,
agree.
He's a
So,
proven race
so
winner in a
fast.
car that might not have
Absolutely,
actually been winning, shouldn't have been winning races.
That's
early on.
it, yeah. And while Sainz,
I will add to that, because while that is true, I do think we saw a little bit more accident-prone Charles than we saw last year. Like, more of the old Charles.
And you wonder if that's a product because of the fact of like frustration coming in
Mm.
less at himself and more because of what's going on at Ferrari and hey,
Yeah.
recent F1 news, let's have a look at what the hell's going on here.
Mm.
They're obviously trying to make some changes. It seemed like right at the start when everything seemed peachy and, he started so strong, it was like, oh, this is what we predicted, to see him with a strong team that knows what the hell they're doing.
Yeah.
But as soon as that slipped and the team started slipping, then he equally also started slipping and
Yeah.
yeah, we saw that unfold throughout the year.
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping that now, because obviously he had a chance to fight right at the top, that, maybe that has brought out a few more mistakes, but we've seen that he can, in following years, he can adapt and sort of clean up those errors a bit more. So I'm kind of hoping that maybe this is a bit of a learning curve for him. If Ferrari can sort of clean up their act as well, with all their strategy and perhaps their reliability as well with their engine. And then if Charles can sort of, maybe keep a little bit more calm, maybe a little bit less antsy behind the wheel, making those silly errors. I think about what was it, Imola, where he just sort of ate the curb and then spun out and lost what was a potential podium and went and dropped to like P7 or 6 or something, had to fight his way back through to try and get back into the a decent amount of points just because he just ate the curb too much. It's like, that's not a error you would have seen last year, but it would have been a couple of years ago. So I'm hoping that
And it was telling how often was he grumpy pants afterwards and
Yeah.
in the pen, and
Yeah.
even
Yep.
less in the past when he'd more just upset at himself making an error, and more because he disliked a lot of other things going on during the race, which of course isn't going to help his mindset.
definitely.
When
Yep.
you look at the alternative, and for Mercedes, how they were really struggling, but they still most of the time, and especially there in the year, managed to extract what they could. So it was still a lot of positive energy there and good vibes, which is paramount to getting success in F1.
top 2, I have gone with Max Verstappen as number 2.
Oh.
So
Okay, I didn't expect that.
yeah, so because it's a weird one because I've got Ferrari as number 2 and Red Bull as number 3. Yeah, I mean, he's so good. I still expect that Red Bull to be competitive, like really competitive in terms
You could
of
say that.
A little
fighting
bit.
for wins,
Kinda
on a
competitive.
consistent basis. And Verstappen has shown that when he has a competitive car, he produces the goods. So I
that's the
still
damn
think,
truth.
even though I think Red Bull will, I have also got Hamilton as number 1.
Boy.
Yeah, I think.
Roll it on.
Yep.
Yeah, if you ask me to predict lower than
Yikes.
3rd, that's where things I think could get a bit.
I don't even.
bit
I'm
interesting.
thinking your ramifications here. I'm like, even
Glad
as
that
a
we didn't
bold
do
call,
that.
you could say,
Yeah.
3 different teams sponsoring the 3
Top
top,
5 next
drivers
year?
is already
Mhm.
a pretty good call. I think.
I think we
Yeah,
have to.
Yeah, maybe.
So yeah, because you could. Because I haven't even really I had a little think about McLaren and whatnot, and I
They were
think
the other
there's
one we haven't really touched on that some
Yeah.
people subbed for Ferrari in some of those
Mhm.
conversations, right?
I think they're gonna be 4th. I would say if I had to pick.
Oh,
a
you shouldn't
Solid
have said that.
4th, I would agree.
Yeah. where whether
I
or
said
not
something too.
Norris or it seems like a safe options for the top two in drivers with Hamilton, Verstappen.
Yeah, safe.
I
Oh,
just
dear.
can't
Verstappen
really
Cole is
see.
pretty big, considering, as you say,
Yeah.
you're not following that same trend almost in
It's
the
true,
constructor
yeah.
side of things. So,
Yep. Yeah, that's fair.
but I get the rationale behind it.
Yeah, so
I still do.
but yeah, those were our predictions. Like I said,
All right, let's pause it there. We can stop. That was it.
Whew.
Yeah.
Who won? I wasn't counting, but I didn't get many.
Whoever wins, we both
Did
lose.
I get any? You got 2? I know you definitely got at least 2.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I got. I don't even remember. I know I predicted a couple, right? But I think we were both. The takeaway I get, again, I've said it already before, is that the thought process and the ideas behind what we were saying were all correct, and then we would just pick the wrong thing, and then the result would be different. So, which, that gives me a little bit of confidence.
I was going to say also, it's not like it's a bad thing. It's not like
Yeah.
we were on the copium train going, we think, it's over for Mercedes, and, we were still going, no, we think even with the changes that are going to be nice, we're still seeing a bit of status quo. And we didn't.
Yeah.
And we talked about that in our review. It was nice to have some nice surprises. And even
Definitely.
if a year looking at it on the stats looked like it was going to be boring, it wasn't at all. It was enjoyable. And it's made us really excited for next year and the year after and the year after.
Yeah, I'm like, even thinking about it, I don't even know. Like, next year predictions is. I almost thought it would
brutal hard.
I almost thought it was going to be easier because it's like we're going to have a year with the new regs. We're going to see where every team stacks up, but it's not that simple, is it? Like,
no,
it's going to be so hard next year.
I think just on how hard it was to predict, and we participated in a Discord server that we're in, a similar predictions contest, and a lot of those questions were more thorough, like listing out the exact championship order for teams and drivers. And you'll see that actually for those, the general trend across a lot of people was actually very, very, very different to what reality was. So it wasn't just us trying to, there was kind of consistent thoughts across the board, which were still different to reality.
Yep.
So I think, again, next year it's almost going to be as exciting to try and predict and guess, but truly this year has shown you don't know, even as hard as you try to analyze everything and you over try to absorb information, as we both did. It's still...
You can still throw out
curveballs. Be worse than the year prior.
Yeah, that's it. So, let us know if there's any other categories you want us to go for, because we'll be doing this again sort of earlier next year. For 2023 season predictions, of course. If there's any categories you want us to talk about, we might consider popping them in. The video's already kind of a good length, but if there's anything in particular you want us to see, we might have to go top 5 drivers.
I think we have to.
I think that does make things interesting. Like,
top 5 drivers, top 4 teams.
Yeah, all right, we can go with that, and then we'll bring back Rookie of the Year as well, because we've got 3 of those. So a couple of other categories. It's going to be a good one. I think there's going to be a lot of talking points for that one. So, but definitely stay tuned. We're still going to react to which we already had one spoiler, but our 2023 driver predictions as well. We'll be reacting to that one pretty soon as well. And that one is... I'm not looking forward to that one. I really am not. That's gonna be bad, I think, for both of us. I don't remember a lot of it, but just considering how the whole year played out, I just know we're screwed. We're absolutely boned. But that'll be fun.
I'm keen to hear our rationale as well. I think that's the fun bit.
The
not
rationale,
just the pick, but also our thought process.
Yeah, maybe we'll do the same thing where it's like we're on the right track, but it's just gone right turn. So, thank you for watching. This was fun. Stay tuned for more off-season videos. Got a lot planned, but we'll see you in the next video. Take care, everyone.
Bye.